All right, ready to go?
Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
so welcome to today's workshop. And yeah, the topic will be variable expansion. And yeah, as you can see on my screen, I prepared an Etherpad. I can actually drop a link on the chat, so you can also open these pages on your side. And there are some pages which will provide more information if you're logged in, and also one which is completely internal. Yeah, so for SUSE employees, it might make sense to actually check out some of these. Um, yeah, so the next, right. So this is about variable expansion. So let's see what this feature actually is. Maybe many of you know it already from settings like these, where you specify some settings in
Excuse me, could
another
not
setting.
do me the favor and zoom in a bit also on this page?
Okay.
Yep, that looks good.
Yeah. So here, for instance, distry will be replaced with the value of the variable distry. So you can basically define settings, yeah, depending on other settings. And I guess the whole concept is actually quite easy. And the new feature which we recently implemented is that these variables can also come from the worker config. Because so far it only works if, for instance, distry is specified in all these scheduling tables or the new YAML scheduling format. Or I guess it also works if you um, spawn a single job using the jobs post API, but so far it didn't work if you had the variable in the worker config. And now it actually also works just like that. The only limitation is that the substitution won't show up on the settings page, on a job details page, because it is actually only done when the job is assigned by a worker to a worker and worked on. And if you would restart the job and it would run on another worker, the substitution might also differ, which makes sense, and that's actually also the point of being able to specify variables in the worker config. And the idea was to um, be able to, for instance, specify a mirror. So, for instance, if one worker has only limited access to certain resources but can use some proxy or mirror instead, then you could replace some URL which you would normally just hard code with a variable, and depending on which worker your job ends up on, it will either use the normal URL or the mirror. And you can see this in the GitLab link here below. So here we have an example that's internal, of course, but just to give all of the people who work at SUSE an idea why we actually did this for our purposes. Yeah. And you can also see the progress ticket. I can also open it here because the ticket itself is public. It's actually part of a bigger epic, which would normally show up as parent here if you were logged in. So maybe that's also interesting to check out for you, because this ticket isn't just a random idea. Yeah, and here, yeah, you don't actually see much more than what I've just told you. Yeah, this is just the reference to the actual parent if you are interested. Yeah, and we actually had another interesting feature regarding the worker config. So I think since I'm already talking about it, why not just present it? So now you can actually specify settings in a different section for a certain worker class. So for instance, here the foo value goes into all jobs which have the foo worker class, because after the colon here it says foo, and that, for instance, in this example means it would go into worker slot 2, but not into worker slot 1 and also not in worker slot 3. And the same counts, of course, for bar. Also, this value wouldn't be used here by worker slot 2 because it's specified in the slot itself, which is, of course, more specific and can still override these class-specific values. Yeah, we intend to do this because it would simplify the worker config a little bit, and also maybe the YAML document from our deployments, where we basically specify a lot of settings, and many are a bit repetitive. Yeah,
There's also one example where we have like public cloud credentials, which are only really necessary for individual instances, but multiple. So we could specify it for the class, and then the setting is visible by all according instances, but not all, reducing code, but also limiting visibility and increasing security.
yes. So those were basically the two interesting features about the worker config we did recently. Yeah, if you're interested, that was, for instance, the PR about variable expansion. Yeah, I linked it, but probably it makes not so much sense to go through the code unless you really want to.
Because we have
Um,
it covered in the documentation, right?
yeah, and of course, well, not of course, but this change was rather trivial with the worker class. So yeah, I don't even link to the PR. Yeah, and I guess that's actually it. I mean, those are pretty simple and straightforward features. And I also mentioned this here. Just one last word where you really have to watch out for is, yeah, if you want to have the variable only expanded on the worker side, then you actually need to use double percentage signs. This can maybe be relevant because the setting would already appear in some other place, in some table available on the web UI. And if you still want to expand it only on the worker, you need double percentage signs. Yeah, but I guess that's really the only and most important catch. So yeah, I would conclude the presentation with that. But of course, this wasn't a lot. So maybe you have questions. And if not, we can also ask more, you can also ask more general questions about OpenQA and maybe related topics.
Yeah, first, so let's see, does anybody have a question related to the variable expansion on multiple levels?
Yeah, well, hello, first of all.
Hi.
It is nice, nice improvement. We will do it in a cloud, or I will do it for the public cloud secrets variables, I think.
Yep, cool.
So thank you for that. I did not though get much the last note from Marius about the double percentage. So
Mhm.
I mean, if you use double percentage, then the variable will be expanded on a worker side, and if you use just single percent character, then the variable will be expanded even in the web UI. Is that correct?
Yes. Also, I guess if you have a variable that is really not present on the web UI, it would be sufficient to also use single percentages to have it expanded on the worker side.
Uh-huh.
So if you're sure it's a variable which won't show up on the web UI, which might actually make sense. I mean, in the mirror example, for instance, you can probably be certain that the mirror variable won't show up on the web UI side. But if you would use something like dist version R,
Yeah.
then it might make sense to use double percentage signs. Also, those are probably also not really sensical to expand only on the worker. So probably in practice, it's not such a big deal because you probably have distinct sets of variables which you want to expand on either the web UI or the worker. I'm just mentioning it because that's something to watch out for.
So are
So
you
it's actually
saying that?
nice for
Go on.
so it's actually nice for the secrets as well, right? So for the secrets, you wanna expand it only in the worker because you don't wanna show it in the web UI.
Well, for secrets, we have some special keys
Yeah.
which allow you already to hide things.
Yeah, but if you specify it as in OpenGA as part of settings, it will still show. So it's correct. If you want to hide it, you put it in the worker config, and then also it will be
Mhm.
masked from OS audience logs.
Yes, so you can do it. Of course, maybe for just a um, setting, you really don't need to use this feature because you can just put some secret into the worker config anyway.
Yeah.
This is really if you want to make use of it as part of another variable. For instance, we had
Yeah.
something like HTTP colon and then some
Mhm.
domain, and the domain, just the domain should be replaced.
Well, no, yeah, we don't do that. We use the underscore secret or
Yeah.
how is it
Mhm.
called? And we then don't combine it into other variables. So yeah, that I see. So we don't have to, yeah. So it does not apply to public cloud.
Yeah, but of course, it still makes sense to maybe know, okay, you can use secret variables and yeah, you can actually have any kind of variable on the worker side as well.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have mentioned that as some additional information about how everything works. Yeah, we also actually have a whole different section about variable precedence because you actually also have multiple places within the web UI. And also there, of course, the question comes up, what will be replaced first and has therefore precedence and what comes afterwards? Yeah. Um, okay, so any additional questions?
Would you maybe just repeat again to make it clear what the message is? When do we want to use the variable expansion on the side of the worker?
I guess for the rather niche case where you have some value which is worker specific. For instance, like I said before, the worker can only reach a certain resource via some proxy, which you
Yes.
need to specify somehow. And then this special value still needs to come up in other variables, like some HTTP URL.
Yes. So
And
to give, I can give the specific SUSE example here. We have Nürnberg 2, which cannot directly access the main mirror, this SUSE, but it can access a local mirror. And if you have a variable which says use exactly this build version 42, and this is the test object, then you put that into a setting, but have the domain part in a variable, and that variable is then filled by the worker, then it could be done.
yeah, and exactly this example is also what's given in this GitLab PR, which was also merged, and I guess it's kind of used.
I'm to be on the conservative side, I have not seen uses yet, so that
Mhm.
would need changes by the test owners to make use what the worker does provide.
Okay, then maybe we speak to the right audience.
Yeah. All right. Any other question or notes by you regarding this topic, guys? Does not seem to be the case. Perfectly fine. So thank you, Marius, for covering that. But as Mario said, now we can use this time slot. So if you have any other generic question or note regarding our development, then please go ahead. Now is the time. If there's nothing,
Yeah,
that's also fine. Wait, say again. Somebody
yeah,
else?
I was also just saying, yeah, unfortunately, nothing comes up.
No problem. Then let me just, you already prepared the link for the workshop topic. So Marius, could you
Yeah,
go to that
right. That's
page?
the last part,
Scroll in a little bit,
basically.
please. And then we can see what will be going on next time.
Yeah, so this was the one from today. And on the next workshop, we will talk about how we automatically update Perl modules in Devil languages Perl. That's of course relevant for OpenQA because we depend on lots of Perl modules, but maybe it's also interesting for you to see in general how OBS can be worked with and automated. Yeah, and that will be done by Tina, who is also the one maintaining Devil languages Perl right now. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So thank you, Marius. Thank you all. That we can conclude and see you next time.
See you.
Thank you. See you.